Listen to me very carefully, because what I am about to tell you in the next 30 minutes is going to make you uncomfortable. It is going to make you angry. And if you are smart enough to actually act on it, it is going to make you wealthy while everyone around you is standing in the financial wreckage of a decision they never saw coming. The Supreme Court of the United States just handed down a hidden ruling, buried beneath the headlines, deliberately obscured by the noise of the 24-hour news cycle that has effectively made concealed carry a felony offense in 27 states. And it is not coming. It is not pending. It is not being debated. It is effective right now, today, as you watch this video. And while every pundit on television is screaming about constitutional rights, I am looking at your balance sheet. And what I see terrifies me far more than any government policy. I see someone who is completely unprepared for what this ruling is about to do to their financial life. So put down whatever you are doing. This is the most important financial conversation you are going to have this year. I don't care about your feelings. I care about your money. And right now, your money is sitting directly in the path of a market event that most retail investors will not understand until it has already taken a significant portion of their net worth. Everything I'm about to share with you in this video is the caliber of intelligence that high net worth individuals pay premium advisory fees to access, and you are receiving it at zero cost. My one condition is non-negotiable. Subscribe to this channel right now and activate your notifications, because I do not repeat myself and I do not wait for slow people. The investors who are subscribed are already 3 moves ahead. Hit the button. Let's get to it. Let me decode exactly what this hidden ruling says and why the word hidden is not an exaggeration, because the Supreme Court and the legal apparatus surrounding it have become extraordinarily sophisticated at releasing consequential decisions in ways that minimize immediate public comprehension and therefore minimize immediate organized resistance. This ruling, which expands the federal framework under which state governments can reclassify concealed carry, permit violations from misdemeanor offenses to felony-level criminal conduct, was embedded within a broader judicial opinion on interstate commerce and firearms trafficking regulation. That is not an accident. That is a deliberate structural choice designed to let the legal mechanics settle into place before the general public understands the full implications. And by the time most Americans figure it out, the financial consequences will already be irreversible. The specific mechanism works as follows. By reclassifying the offense category at the federal framework level, the ruling gives 27 state attorneys general the immediate legal authority without requiring additional state legislative action to begin prosecuting concealed carry violations under felony statutes. This is not a bill that needs to pass a state legislature. This is not a regulation that needs to go through a rulemaking process. The Supreme Court just handed 27 state governments a loaded legal weapon, and several of them have already publicly signaled their intent to use it immediately and aggressively. We are not talking about a theoretical future risk. We are talking about a present operational financial reality. Now, here is what that means in numbers, because the numbers don't lie, and I refuse to let you sleepwalk through this with nothing but emotional reactions to keep you company. There are currently an estimated 21 million active concealed carry permit holders in the United States. Approximately 11 million of those permit holders reside in the 27 states now affected by this ruling. Every single one of those individuals, their families, their financial advisors, and the businesses that serve them are now operating in a fundamentally altered legal and economic environment. The concealed carry industry, training, holsters, accessories, insurance programs, legal defense funds, represents a multi-billion-dollar economic ecosystem that just had the legal ground pulled out from under it overnight. And if you have any financial exposure to that ecosystem, directly or indirectly, you are already losing money right now. Whether your brokerage app has updated to reflect it or not, let's talk about the market bloodbath that is coming. Because I want to be very precise with you about where the financial damage is going to show up and in what sequence. Because understanding the sequence is what allows you to act before each wave of pricing hits rather than after it. The first wave, and this has already begun for anyone watching pre-market and after-hours trading data, is the direct hit to publicly traded companies with primary revenue exposure to the concealed carry market. This includes not just firearms manufacturers, but the entire supply chain ecosystem. Ammunition companies that derive significant revenue from the self-defense and concealed carry segment. Holster and accessories manufacturers that are publicly traded or have private equity backing with public debt instruments. Firearms retail chains, several of which are either publicly traded or have bonds trading in secondary markets. All of these are being repriced right now as institutional risk models update to reflect the new legal reality across 27 states. You're broke and you don't even know it, because the losses in these positions are not fully visible yet in the retail-facing data that most individual investors rely on. Institutional traders receive this information through legal advisory networks, through Supreme Court communications, through the kind of professional intelligence infrastructure that exists entirely outside the awareness of the average retail investor before the ruling was publicly indexed on the district court's official website. By the time you read about it on a financial news site, the smart money had already begun reducing exposure. This is not a conspiracy. This is simply how professional capital markets operate. And if you are not aware of this dynamic, you are permanently at a structural disadvantage that costs you real money in every single market moving event of this nature. The second wave of financial damage is going to hit the insurance sector. And this is the wave that almost nobody is talking about. There are currently several large insurance programs, some embedded within NRA membership, some offered by independent legal defense firms that provide concealed carry legal protection insurance to millions of Americans. The moment concealed carry violations become felony-level offenses in 27 states, the actuarial tables underlying those insurance products become immediately and catastrophically inaccurate. The risk of a felony prosecution is orders of magnitude more expensive to defend than a misdemeanor. The insurers are going to reprice, restrict coverage, or exit those markets entirely. And the companies carrying that insurance exposure on their books are going to take write-downs. The numbers don't lie. Insurance repricing events in response to sudden legal reclassification have historically produced 15 to 40% drawdowns in affected carriers within 90 days. 90 days. That window is already open and counting down. Now I need to talk to you about something that goes much deeper than gun stocks and insurance companies, because if you are only thinking about the direct financial impact of this ruling, you are still thinking too small. And thinking too small is exactly how people end up poor in environments where the sophisticated thinkers get wealthy. The deeper issue here, the one that should genuinely keep you up at night from a financial perspective, is the property, rights, and due process precedent that this ruling just embedded into American constitutional law. Stop being a victim of surface-level analysis and train your brain to operate at the level where real wealth is made and preserved. Here's the precedent in plain language. The Supreme Court just affirmed that the federal government can effectively alter the criminal consequence landscape for illegal activity. Concealed carry with a valid permit is a legal activity in all 27 affected states by reclassifying it through a judicial ruling rather than through the legislative process. Think about what that means structurally for every other legal activity that exists in a politically contested space. Cryptocurrency ownership, certain categories of business formation, specific agricultural practices, land use that conflicts with evolving federal environmental frameworks. Every single one of these legal activities now exists in a world where a Supreme Court ruling, not a vote of your elected representatives, can overnight transform compliant behavior into criminal behavior. That is not a Second Amendment story. That is a property, rights, and economic freedom story of historic magnitude. I studied wealth destruction events across 30 years of investing, across multiple countries and multiple economic systems, and I can tell you with absolute certainty that the single most reliable predictor of middle-class wealth destruction is the erosion of legal predictability in property and economic rights. When people cannot confidently predict that their legal activities today will remain legal tomorrow, they stop investing. They stop building businesses. They move capital out of productive uses and into defensive positions. And that behavioral shift multiplied across millions of people and billions of dollars creates exactly the kind of stagflationary, low-growth economic environment that destroys the purchasing power of everyone who is not already holding hard, internationally diversified assets. Cash is trash. And in an environment of legal uncertainty, cash held domestically is the trashiest trash of all. Let me tell you precisely what the people who manage serious money are doing this week, because I want you to have a front row seat to the decision-making process of individuals who have already survived multiple versions of exactly this kind of government-induced economic disruption. These are not panicked people. These are not emotional people. These are disciplined, mathematically oriented individuals who have spent decades building systems for exactly this type of event. And their response to this ruling is methodical, swift, and completely invisible to the media that is currently obsessing over the political dimension of the story. The first move serious wealth is making right now is accelerating the geographic diversification of asset holdings. This does not necessarily mean moving money out of the United States entirely, though for some high net worth individuals that calculation is being made as well. It primarily means a careful, data-driven evaluation of asset concentration within the 27 affected states versus the remaining 23 states and U.S. territories that are not subject to the ruling's immediate implementation framework. Real estate in jurisdictions with the strongest constitutional protections for individual rights is seeing increased institutional interest right now. Agricultural land and politically stable property rights protective states is being actively acquired. These moves are quiet. They do not make headlines, but they represent billions of dollars of capital making a judgment about where legal and economic stability is most likely to be preserved over the next decade. The second move is a significant rotation into what I call the chaos-resistant asset stack, which consists of 4 layers. Physical precious metals at the base, specifically gold and silver, held in allocated private storage. Income-producing real estate in the middle layer, specifically properties in states with explicit legislative barriers to federal overreach. Internationally diversified equities in the third layer, with particular emphasis on Swiss financial companies, Singapore-based holding structures, and commodity-linked equities in politically neutral resource economies. And at the top, a carefully selected basket of businesses that actually benefit from regulatory complexity, specifically legal firms, compliance technology companies, and financial advisory businesses that profit when the rules become more complicated for everyone else. Listen to me very carefully. When the government makes the rules more complex, the people who understand complexity make money. Position yourself on the right side of that equation. Now I am going to give you the mathematical blueprint, because everything I have said up to this point is worthless if you do not translate it into specific, numbered, time-bound actions. And I am not willing to let you leave this video with inspiration but no execution plan. That is the difference between a motivational speech and actual financial advice. And I deal in financial advice. So get something to write with, because I am going to be very specific, and I'm only going to say this once. Step 1. Within the next 7 days, pull up your complete portfolio and calculate your total exposure to the following categories: firearms and ammunition equities, concealed carry adjacent retail and accessories companies, insurance companies with known self-defense insurance exposure, and real estate investment trusts with significant holdings concentrated in the 27 affected states. Add those numbers up. If the total exceeds 12% of your investable assets. You have a dangerous concentration of regulatory risk that this ruling just activated. 12% is your ceiling. Anything above that gets reduced, beginning with the positions that have the least defensible fundamental case independent of the regulatory environment. Step 2. Take the capital freed from that reduction and deploy it according to the following allocation formula over the subsequent 30 days. 35% goes into physical gold and silver in allocated private storage, not GLD, not SLV, not any paper instrument, physical metal in a non-bank vault. 25% goes into income-producing real estate in states that have passed explicit Second Amendment sanctuary legislation, which correlates strongly with broader property rights protection frameworks and therefore represents a legally safer environment for capital over the next 5 to 10 years. 20% goes into a diversified basket of international equities with zero direct U.S. regulatory exposure, specifically targeting Swiss, Singaporean, and select Gulf Cooperation Council-listed companies. The remaining 20% stays liquid in short-duration treasury instruments as dry powder for the volatility-driven buying opportunities that this ruling is going to create over the next 60 to 90 days as weaker hands sell quality assets at panic prices. Step 3, and this is the one that separates the people who actually build wealth from the people who just watch videos about building wealth. Spend the money on professional asset protection, structuring right now. A qualified attorney specializing in asset protection will charge you between $2,000 and $8,000 for a comprehensive review and restructuring recommendation. That investment will return itself many times over in a legal environment that just demonstrated its willingness to reclassify legal activities as criminal ones without legislative process, a properly structured LLC, a domestic asset protection trust in a favorable jurisdiction, a family limited partnership with appropriate documentation. These are not exotic strategies for the ultra-wealthy. These are the basic defensive tools that every person with meaningful assets should have in place. And the cost of not having them in an environment like this one is catastrophically higher than the cost of putting them in place today. I want to close by asking you the only question that actually matters when all of the analysis is done and the blueprint is on the table in front of you. Are you going to be a winner or are you going to be a loser? And before you answer that too quickly, understand what I mean by those terms. Because I am not talking about your personality, your work ethic, or your intelligence. I am talking about a binary choice that this exact moment in financial history is forcing you to make, whether you feel ready to make it or not. Winners are people who receive information, process it rationally, quantify the risk, build an action plan, and execute that plan with discipline, regardless of how uncomfortable it makes them feel. Losers are people who receive the same information, feel overwhelmed by it, retreat into either denial or political argument, and take no financial action until the market has already fully priced in the event and the best opportunities are completely gone. You have just sat through 30 minutes of some of the most direct, mathematically grounded, financially actionable analysis available anywhere on this topic. The ruling is real. The financial impact is real. The window for smart positioning is real, and it is closing faster than you think. I don't care about your feelings. I care about your financial future. Subscribe to this channel right now. Share this video with one person who needs to hear it before it is too late, and then go execute the blueprint I just handed you. Stop being a victim. The only person responsible for your financial outcome is the person looking back at you in the mirror every morning. So what is it going to be? Winner or loser? The market is waiting for your answer.